Well, what's up, everybody? Aaron Nagler here with Cheesehead TV, coming to you live on a Wednesday afternoon. Just chilling here with the news that Elliot Wolf out in Cleveland, along with Alonzo Highsmith. Green Bay East is slowly becoming more. Lots to talk about always with the green and gold. That's kind of the headline on the day. Not a whole lot of other news percolating around the Packers, but it's always good to join up with my friends here on the Cheesehead TV YouTube channel and talk some Packers and let you know that you don't want to leave your hunger on the sidelines. Tackle it the right way at Festival Foods, the grocery and tailgating headquarters of the Green Bay Packers. From their fan favorite Festy burgers to must have game day wings and the legendary Towering T Bone, Festival Foods has everything you need to make your next tailgating party a touchdown. Want more mouth-watering options? Explore all their game day worthy food at festfoods.com/tailgating. What's up, everybody, in the comments section? Yo, Tony, what's going on? Aaron Harper, go Pack Go. Bye knows the script. Don't leave your hunger on the sideline. That's right, baby. Don't do it. Nags, finally caught you live. Busy Bee, what's up, Tim? Thanks for dropping by. Travis, who's your pick for this Sunday? You'll find out tomorrow. If you check out the YouTube channel at 11 a.m. Eastern, Corey, myself, and super live, huge, mungous 49ers fan, Al, our producer Al, I'm going to be playing him in Madden. Poor guy's about to get his ass kicked by the Chiefs. But it'll be a good time. It'll be a lot of fun. But yes, I am pulling for the Chiefs. As far as do I have an official pick? Yeah, I'll pick the Chiefs. What the hell? I think the 49ers are insanely talented, well coached, etc. But yeah, I don't think they have. I think Spagnuolo is going to be a little bit more prepared than Mike Pettin was 2 weeks ago. What do you see with the bigger issue with the defense? Lack of talent up front or scheme? Probably I'd lean more towards talent, though, you know, I do think you can't absolve the scheme or the inability to think outside of your comfort zone if you're the defensive coordinator. But I do think they have to upgrade or develop a little bit better up front along the defensive line, but they need to overhaul inside linebacker. I think Gutekunst said as much in his press conference. I won't be surprised if that's a major point of emphasis because look, I think a lot of the pieces around inside linebacker work pretty well. But there's a common denominator when it comes to the weakness of the defense, and that is the inside, whether it is the linebacker position or utilizing that three safety look and dropping that safety down. It's all well and good. Pettin has talked often about the need and desire to defend the pass, defend the deep ball, etc. And that's why he has so many defensive backs on the field. But at some point, it is a game of being able to shed a block, being able to dictate on defense rather than react. And if that's going to be the case, they have to get better inside. And Corey, of course, yes, Corey will be there, as you just maybe heard him walk by here. He is excited to watch Al get his butt kicked, really. Because Al, oh, poor Al. Al's a great guy. He's a producer here at LiveX. And we actually played New Year's Eve after LiveX got done with our New Year's Eve work. We came here back to the studio, had drinks, and played Madden on the big screen. And I proceeded to kick Al's butt with the Packers. And I'm going to do the same with the Chiefs. Should we bring more coaches with different minds to this defense rather than everyone having a Pettin type mindset? Ismail, I'm obviously that question is apropos since the Packers did announce the Jerry Gray hiring this afternoon. Yeah, I think there's enough disparate kind of ideas in the room as it is. Don't forget Jerry Montgomery, the defensive line coach. He has had a long history outside of Pettin's scheme and outside of being with Mike Pettin. Yeah, I think that all the guys on the staff come from pretty diverse backgrounds. Now, other guys who have worked with Pettin, like Mike Smith, etc. Yeah, of course, and I think that's to be expected. But I think there's a decent mix, and I don't hate the idea of going and bringing in a Jerry Gray who's got a long history in other schemes and could bring some fresh ideas to the table. But I don't think it's a necessity to go hog wild and rip the staff apart. Hypothetically, how do you think we'd have fared against Kansas City and Mahomes in the big game, David? I think it would have been frustrating to watch because I think Pettin would have employed this very same kind of defensive game plan he did the first time around, with keeping those two deep safeties back, allowing stuff to kind of happen in front of them, trying to protect against the big play. But I think Mahomes is obviously the X factor there, and he would have made hay. And I think hell, Matt Moore had a pretty damn good night against that defense. So could the Packers have kept up? That would have been my question, and my hunch would be no. Um, Nags, I still feel responsible for the Packers' loss against the 49ers. Me and my wife were also there in Seattle when they lost that NFC Championship game. So my wife said, no more NFC Championship games for me. Alex, it's not your fault. Listen to me, buddy. Listen to me. It's not your fault. And if you have the chance, the opportunity to go to another NFC Championship game where the Packers are playing, whether it's on the road or at Lambeau Field, go to the game, buddy. It's not your fault. Do you think Goody will help Jimmy another year? Do you think Goody will keep Jimmy another year, regardless of the possible retirement? Um, well, obviously, if he retires, that'll be it. But I would have said it would have been obvious that he was going to cut him last offseason, but then he kept him around and tried to defend the year that Jimmy had the season prior. So, I mean, I don't know what's at work there, but I don't think any observer can look at his tape and say, oh, he's definitely got to come back, especially at that price point. Now, maybe they bring him back on a restructured deal and they kind of cut that cap hit, but I cannot imagine him coming back in 2020 at the current cap hit. Do you think the new defensive backs coach could be a potential Pettin replacement? I've seen that posited quite a little bit because of his background. He has been a coordinator twice before. I would tend to doubt it. Although you can't dismiss the possibility out of hand if Pettin and company really kind of, uh, you know, take a tailspin, whatever, have a real regression, etc. They don't improve. But I would think LaFleur would probably go out and find somebody with a kind of have a brand new start, new scheme, fresh ideas, etc. But maybe he has that in Gray. I mean, only LaFleur really knows that. But I would suspect he'd probably go get somebody he has a longer history with. But you never know. What day is the Mad matchup? That'd be tomorrow, Uncultured. Tomorrow morning, 11 a.m. Be there. Do Matt LaFleur and Aaron talk consistently during the offseason or only during the practices in Green Bay? Well, obviously, there are rules via the CBA about contact, when it's allowed, how much they can be in contact, what they can talk about. They're not allowed to talk football. They're not allowed to talk scheme. They're not allowed to talk any of that. Can they text back and forth and say, "Hey, what's up? Saw you on TV, etc." Sure, that's fine. But I tend to think they'll probably take a little break, take a couple months off, and then come back together and work through things and talk and what have you. Do you think Billy Turner could be our right tackle next year, or did they pay him to be interior? Well, Doug, I think they paid him the money they did because of his versatility. So you have to think it's a possibility, especially if Balaga does end up walking. But I tend to think they'll keep him at right guard and either re-sign Valdir, re-sign Bulaga, and or draft somebody. But you never know. I mean, they did extend Lucas Patrick. Possibly he kicks in there at right guard, and they do move out Turner to right tackle, and they carry on without Valdir and Bulaga. That is a possibility. I'd be surprised, though. I think he sticks at right guard, at least for now. Second day pick used for a tight end if Jimmy is released. It's a possibility. It depends on how the board falls. I do think Sternberger is going to be your kind of frontline guy next year. They got to get him more snaps. He played pretty darn well. His tape is good in the second half of the season when he did come up off of IR. Just never really got a chance to get some looks from the quarterback. But you saw him work open in that touchdown he caught in the NFC Championship game. I think a full offseason working with 12, because look, I said all last offseason, it's really hard for rookie tight ends to make the jump and come in and make a splash their rookie year. I think obviously the time on IR hurts, but even back this past summer, the offseason, 12 said as much in one of his locker room sessions. He didn't work with Sternberger at all last offseason. I mean, because they had Jimmy, they had Mercedes, and they had Tanyan, who'd already been in the fold. Those three guys were circling through with the ones. Sternberger was always with the twos, threes. and never worked with Rodgers. I mean, hardly ever. So I think next summer you're going to see Sternberger get a lot more work with the quarterback, and that should lead to greater production and use next season. Now, to come back to your question, I wouldn't be surprised at all if there's a tight end there that they love on day 2, day 3. Maybe they take him, but I think Sternberger is going to be your guy at that position next year. I thought Highsmith was going to Miami University. I know there was a report out there about it. I haven't seen it confirmed. I actually texted Alonzo to see if that was true, and he didn't get back to me. It's funny how he picks his time when he actually wants to respond to your texts or calls. But yeah, I know. Like I said, I saw that was out there, but I haven't seen it confirmed yet. That seems like bad coaching, in my opinion. What does? You talking about Sternberger and his reps? That's pretty common. How does the CBA know what players and coaches talk about privately? Well, they don't, Gretchen. You're kind of on the honor system, although, especially if it's via text, that's evidence. And if a player had a coach say texting him, "I want you to work on XYZ," or trying to talk football, potentially they could. They call them locker room lawyers. Bring that to the union and say, "My coach is texting me about football. He's not supposed to do that per the CBA." Now, do I expect that to happen, especially with 12? No, of course not. But to say it would never happen, you can't say that because it has. You see little stories pop up throughout the season about guys in the locker room going to the NFLPA about small infractions, things that happen in practice during the summer, etc. Um, so most guys adhere to it just because that's the whole reason they tried to change things in the CBA. That's one of the few concessions the players got out of the owners. Um, So I think coaches are really frustrated by that. Players love it. They love a little break. They love time away. And look, as a fan, as someone who grew up loving the game and knowing how 365 it is, I hate the idea that the coaches and players can't talk football in the offseason. I know why players love it. I do think it hinders you as a team, but everyone's playing under the same rules. You know, everyone is essentially taking that break. So I can't say that it's unfair or whatever because like I said it's league wide mandated. Everyone's got to follow it, but it changed a lot of how teams structure their off seasons and how much the guys are in the building. And guys can still access the facilities. Especially injured guys like to stick around, work out, use the gym, etc. They just aren't allowed to be on a football field, not allowed to go in the film room, not allowed to be. The coaches aren't allowed to come into the gym and talk to the guys about football, etc. KJ486, thanks for the super chat. Will Corey have any off-season content this year? I hope so. He's wandering. I'd ask him, but he's wandering around right now. I really want to get him to make that uh, old-fashioned video that we've been talking about for seemingly years now. Because let me tell you, Corey makes, and I am not exaggerating, I am not blowing smoke here. Corey makes the best old-fashioned I have ever had, and I have had a lot of old-fashions. That man, he's got it down. He's got it down. I don't know what he does, but he's got it down. So good. So I'm hoping this offseason we finally get the Corey Banky tutorial how to make an old fashioned. Grassi's here. What's up, Grassi? What Patreon tier is the Cheesehead TV swimsuit calendar? That would be bonus level $5,000 a month. Favorite play from this season? Oh, it's got to be the Rodgers toss to Williams in the corner of the end zone against Kansas City, which he swears blind was going to Williams. I'll maintain till the day I die he was throwing it to Jimmy Graham. But regardless of where he was who he was throwing it to, it was a fucking awesome play. That play is insane. Who do you think they get at wide receiver? That's a good question. I think they'll probably make a play on Robbie Anderson as a guy they tried to trade for. Now he's set to be a free agent. Now that is if he hits free agency. There's still time for the Jets to try and re-sign him. Otherwise, I think they'll definitely look to the draft It's a super deep class this year. I'm not going to posit any names yet. Haven't really even begun to kind of dive into the class, but everyone I talk to who covers the draft for a living talks about how deep the wide receiver class is. It's one of the deepest classes at wide receiver that people have seen in basically like over a decade. So I do not doubt for a second that at least one, maybe two wide receivers are taken in this draft by the Packers. Vic, Ke- Vic Ketchman mentioned on his blog that we found out why Z was snubbed in the 49er game. I think that's ridiculous. That's just me. Vic has allowed his opinion. I am going to respectfully disagree. I'm sure Corey would like to hear that. Yeah, I'm sure he would. Uh, would you be excited about Robbie? I mean, it'd be an interesting mix as far as the locker room goes. But I think, yeah, working with 12 and having Devontae on the other side, they could be cooking with gas, definitely. Duke, thoughts on the new defensive backs coach? I mean, he's got an extensive history. It's nice to see a guy with a lot of experience. You do wonder about his exit in Minnesota. You know, Zimmer says point blank, and Zimmer's not a guy to sugarcoat something. That is probably for the best that he move on. I know a lot was made about the corners really struggling this year in Minnesota, but I think if you look at the totality of his work with Zimmer in Minnesota, he's done a pretty good job. But for whatever reason, things kind of really hit the wall this year. So maybe fresh start, fresh guys, new messaging, etc. Maybe that helps. Um, but pretty much everywhere he's been, I think he's done well, especially early on. I think things kind of fell apart on him in Buffalo due to circumstances outside his control. But for the most part, I think he's a pretty good coach. I'm interested to hear what guys think of him once they get in the building working with him. Uncultured, thanks for the super chat. When is Grossi Nagler 2 the stumble in the jungle, or is he scared after his last pummeling about the head and shoulders? I'd be happy to take on Signor Grossi at any time. The studio is always ready. He just has to make some time in his busy schedule. If he's not, live streaming him watching, The Bachelor or whatever it is he's doing this week, you never know with Tom. Like all of a sudden, the Royal Rumble's on. No, he's streaming. The impeachment hearings are on. He's streaming. Grassi's a busy guy, so if he can make time in that busy streaming schedule, he's more than welcome to come here and get his butt kicked. Hey, Corey, people want to know, when are you doing the old-fashioned tutorial? That's a no comment from Mr. Benke. Javier, thank you for the super chat. Very generous of you. Any chance Becton falls all the way to 30? Whew. I mean, there's always a chance, right? You can't sit here, especially January, what is it, 29th, and say, oh, there's no shot. I mean, we don't really even have definitive team needs yet as far as, those 29 other teams. Franchise tags will happen, re-signings will happen, and the landscape will change a bit. Now, you can get a good idea of what team needs are, and how the draft might go, but you're going to look at hundreds of mocks between now and April. None of them are going to be right, and the possibility of a fall to 30, sure, yeah, it's possible. Do I see it? Probably not, which is too bad. Is there a linebacker that you would like to see in the green and gold next season? Yeah, the Oklahoma kid, whose name escapes me right now, but I know he's a guy who could probably play all over the map in Pettin's system. I think he'd bring a lot of versatility and a lot of athleticism. He's fun to watch, good hitter, flies around, could do both as far as covering downfield, turns his hips really well, but he could also shoot a gap and get to the quarterback and or ball carrier. Grossi needs some of those Cheesehead TV acoustic panels. That'd be great if he had some of those. That'd be fun. Down here. Well, I'll show you guys the room here. Got Brett over there. There's some panels. There's Corey. He just left. There's Rogers and Hudson over there. Cheesehead TV. Oh, what's up, Brett? And then over here, what we got over here? We got Bart. We got the man, myth, legend. Kenneth Murray. Thank you, Dirty Dub. Patrick Queen, there's another guy who possibly could fall, although I highly doubt it. Why did the spread formation stuff work for so long with McCarthy and then suddenly stop? And now it's clear it doesn't work well with LaFleur. Is it personnel? Alex, that's a big part of it. Yeah, no doubt about it. When you're running, you know, uh, everything from Jennings and that squad to Nelson, Cobb and company, that's a talented group. And there's a reason because of that, that scheme that Mike used, there's a reason Ted Thompson made sure they were supplied with plenty of talented wide receivers. You know, uh, especially, I mean, when you're going 3, 4, even 5 wide, sometimes you need as many of the talented bodies out there as you can get. That's why the Packers were always bringing in wide receivers from drafting on the first day to or second day to all the way to bringing in lots of undrafted guys just for bodies in practice. If you're running 3 deep as far as like first team, second team, third team, well, the third team needs as many wide receivers as the first team does. So you need lots of bodies at wide receiver. Now you get to LaFleur, it's pretty clear that they're not going to do as much spread stuff. So it wasn't too surprising that they didn't make wide receiver a more of um, a focal point. Now that said, I think they hoped they'd have a little bit more development from the guys than they did, and that is probably why you're going to see a big overhaul at the wide receiver spot this offseason. Do you think we need a big 330-pound, big slug of a defensive tackle? Not necessarily. I mean, if there's a guy there that fits the bill, size and athleticism wise, I'm not. You can't dismiss it out of hand. But I don't think that's like the missing ingredient. Um, you just need talented guys up front, and I don't think that's any secret. I thought Ross over at Packer Report made a really good point this morning. He's been making it kind of throughout the year, but he reiterated it this morning. Mike Pennell. I think Mike Pennell would have made a difference on this defense. He worked out for the Packers this year. Kansas City signed him 10 days later, and he's really helped their defense. And I think the Packers could have used him. But for whatever reason, probably because of the 2 suspensions last time he was in town, Gutekunst didn't feel comfortable bringing him in. But I think that's an example of a guy who I don't think he's not a road grade. He's not a monster, humongous defensive tackle, but talented guy, big body, got some quick twitch. Definitely helps Kansas City. And look, I think a lot of people are counting Kingsley Kiki out. And I get he didn't play a whole lot this year, didn't get to see a whole lot of him. But I do think they have a player there. I'm really anxious to see how much development they get out of him in year 2 because I think he can help. Um, FTS, I talked about that a little bit before. I think Jerry Gray wants a DC job, possible replacement for Pettin. I mean, you can't dismiss the idea, but I'd be surprised if things go south with Pettin. I would suspect LaFleur would want a clean slate / go get somebody he's really familiar with. But you never know if they have a good year together and he really impresses LaFleur. It's a possibility. Uh, how does Gary see the field behind the Smiths? What changes? Well, I think they got to be amiable to coming off the field. You saw there were times when even when Zadarius was injured or like hurting, he went back out right away. I think the coaching staff has to do the job of saying, okay, no, look, the kid has to get out on the field and we're going to save your legs for down the stretch, etc. Um, I understand wanting to keep them both out there because they're really effective. They're the most productive, tandem in the league. So of course you don't want to take them off, but you did invest a pretty significant pick, 12th overall, Gary. I get it. It's a good problem to have, but he's got to get on the field. It's year 2. There are going to be no excuses. He's got to get on the field and he's got to produce. Uh, where do you think Philip Rivers ends up? Well, Gary, I saw yesterday. Was it this morning? No, I think it was yesterday. Jay Glazer kind of clarified his report, saying that whoever put that initial tweet out there saying that the Chargers had moved on from Rivers, that wasn't entirely accurate. Glazer saying that when I report something, I'll report it and you'll know it. So it doesn't sound like that's a definitive case yet, that Rivers is absolutely gone from Los Angeles. Now that said, if he does end up, on the street, I wouldn't be surprised if the Bears made a call. I would hate it, but it's very possible. Let's see. Hi from Denmark. Hey, what's up? Do you see the Packers finding more success with the outside zone running scheme in 2020? Yeah, it was something they did a lot of early, and then they kind of starting around the Dallas game, they started using a lot more inside zone. Um, I think they utilized it eh, quite a bit throughout the year. I'm with you. I don't think it was particularly effective. Maybe that's something that in year two they get, they gel a little bit more. Maybe it becomes a little more efficient. But I wonder how I don't know how well suited the offensive line is for that outside zone stuff that they're trying to do because they always tried to get athletic guys when McCarthy was in town. They converted a lot of tackles to guard, etc. That was kind of their MO because they wanted, athletes. They wanted guys who could move in space and get out on the edge, so to speak, and get produce those cutback lanes. Maybe they need a little bit more oomph up front for whatever reason, however they're trying to run the football. But um, if the offensive line doesn't change, I don't see a whole lot changing in that regard when it comes to outside zone. But that's just me. All right, guys, I'm gonna have to jump. I can't thank you guys enough for joining me. 275 of you here on a Wednesday afternoon. It's about to be the cold, dark of the off season, but there's always something to talk about with the Packers, no doubt about it. And hey, don't leave your hunger on the sidelines, guys. Tackle it the right way at Festival Foods, the grocery and tailgating headquarters of the Green Bay Packers. From their fan favorite festy burgers to must-have game day wings and the legendary towering T-bone, Festival Foods has everything you need to make your tailgating party a touchdown. You want more mouth-watering options? I know you do. It's Super Bowl Sunday this weekend. Explore all their game day worthy food at festfoods.com/tailgating. And like I said, you want to watch the Super Bowl preview here on Cheesehead TV's YouTube channel tomorrow morning, 11 a.m. I'm going to kick Al's ass. It's going to be a lot of fun. Corey's going to be here. We're going to be chatting Packers, Super Bowl, whatever else you guys want to talk about. We're here. We're devoted to Green Bay Packers fans worldwide. And hey, speaking of Madden, I dropped it this morning. As I said on Transplants last week or earlier this week, if you want to play me in Madden this offseason, hit up the Patreon page, patreon.com/CheeseheadTV. $5 a month is all we ask to support everything we do at Cheesehead TV, video, content, social, everything. And hey, if you're a Patreon member, I will play you in Madden. All you got to do is shoot me your Xbox handle. We'll arrange a date. I'll be playing one patron every week. I've already got next week set up. It's going to be a lot of fun. Thanks a lot, everybody. Hit like, hit subscribe. Go Pack Go. Cheesehead TV. We're devoted to Green Bay Packers fans worldwide.